10 years ago, people were not kind of having these conversations about quitting drinking or cutting back. So it's been so cool to just see how things have changed over the past decade. I think it wasn't even how I was drinking, it was like the impact that it was having on my life. When I first drank in high school, it really felt like this solution to my problems. And I really think that is a missing link that people don't talk about with substance use or even eating disorders.
Welcome to the I Decide Darlings podcast. I'm Erin.
And I'm Lisa. We are moms, wives, best friends, entrepreneurs, and authors of the book, I Decide, the happy little guide to living your best life. Pull up a chair, grab a glass of wine, and get ready to talk all things health, success, loss, money, family, and everything in between. These two besties won't leave anything off the table.
So get ready to laugh, cry, hear the tips, tools, and stories to give you the success you crave, the life you adore, and the future you deserve. You are listening to the I Decide podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the I Decide Darlings podcast. As always, I am Erin Lopez.
And I'm Lisa Cox. Welcome.
Welcome. It's been a few days. I feel like I miss this. I miss our little chitty chats. And today we have a really good one.
I'm so excited. I miss it too, Erin. I feel like it's been a couple of weeks since we've been on here. And so today we're super excited.
Yes, and I have the pleasure today of introducing our guest. And our guest today is Amanda E. White. We cannot forget the E. I told myself that. Amanda E. White. Amanda E. White is a licensed therapist and creator of the popular Instagram account, which you all need to go follow, at Therapy.
Yeah.
She is the author of the book, Not Drinking Tonight, a guide to creating a sober life you love. She is the founder and owner of the group and therapy practice Therapy for Women's Center, based in Philadelphia, serving clients across the country. And in her clinical work, she specializes in working with individuals with substance abuse disorders and eating disorders. And we have lots and lots of questions for you, Amanda, today. Many people are drawn to her unique expertise, her accessible approach to healing and mental health. She has been featured in not one, not two, but many publications of Forbes, Washington Post, Shape, Women's Health Magazine, and so much more. Amanda, welcome to the I Decide Darlings podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We've been talking so much about this topic. I think it's such a great topic for us to address, and something that, we're excited to learn from you and hear from you today. But we would love for you to share a little bit about your story, where you came from, where you are now, and get us to who Amanda E. White is today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's timely because I actually yesterday was 10 years since I stopped drinking.
Congratulations.
So that is, thank you. Yeah, that's a big part of my story. Is 10 years ago, I was 24 and I realized that my drinking was unsustainable. And, 10 years ago, people were not kind of having these conversations about quitting drinking or cutting back. So
Absolutely.
It's been so cool to just see how things have changed over the past decade and how normalized it is. But I struggled a lot with substance use and mental health and an eating disorder in high school, in college. And I had kind of this moment where I really wanted to be a therapist, and I was in school to be a therapist. And I realized that my drinking was going to prevent me potentially from that happening. And that was a really pivotal moment where I decided to stop drinking.
So can I ask you, again, you're a baby and I love it.
Yeah.
So, when you're 24 and you're having a drinking problem, tell us what that looks like, because I know I can only speak for myself. In my 20s, I lived it up, and so what did that look like for you?
Yeah. I think it wasn't even how I was drinking. It was like the impact that it was having on my life. I had a very serious eating disorder. I would get into car accidents. Actually, I got into multiple car accidents, not because I was drinking and driving, but because I was so out of it from my eating disorder. Like I wasn't eating for days. I was binging and purging multiple times a day. So that was like a big impact, for example. Or even I lost pretty much all my friends by the time I graduated college because I wasn't a good friend. I would leave the house with the stove on. I would not lock the door. I would abandon people, at parties and things like that. So though, like I lost jobs because I was working at Lululemon and I was like late all the time and I was fired for that. So it wasn't even that I was drinking much, much more than everyone else. It just seems like when I got drunk, I would do things that were just totally uncharacteristic for myself, that just made me really out of alignment with who I wanted to be. And I was so depressed by the time I graduated college. I was suicidal for a time and I just had no hope. And that was, I think, the big difference.
Sorry, again, so many questions for you.
Yeah.
That personality wise, can you look back to your childhood? I mean, how does an eating disorder for somebody like you, I think, it is such a topic that, again, Lisa and I both have girls, it is no topics are off the table of anything that we talk about in our household and in our lives, but an eating disorder and all of that, did it stem from something? Was it, because again, we all say, you look back on your childhood and can you see things that kind of led us to where we are now?
Totally. So I was a competitive figure skater growing up. So that was a pretty big thing that definitely impacted just body image, how I felt about myself. And I moved a lot growing up. So I went to 2 different elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. So I really struggled with just feeling like I had friends, like I fit in. Looking back, it's really clear to me just how I was seeking something, like outside of myself to feel okay about myself. And when I first drank in high school, it really felt like this solution to my problems. And I really think that is a missing link that people don't talk about with substance use or even eating disorders is often the behavior. It goes from just being not a regular thing, but right, a lot of kids in college or high school drink, or a lot of girls diet. And it went from sort of an experimental thing to something more serious because it became so important to me. And it felt like this was what I needed. I needed to be able to drink so that I could have these experiences of fitting in with people. I needed to shrink my body to be able to feel like I was attractive enough or, I was cool enough or whatever those things were.
So you're out of alignment. You're feeling that every day when you're 24 years old. You feel like you've lost hope, and you're in your body knowing that that's not who you actually really are. And so that moment, was there a major moment of impact? In my history, just to give a little bit of history, my mom's second husband, huge impact on my life person. He, when they got married, had been an AA sponsor, which we'll talk about that later. We have questions about that, for 20 years when they got married. And so he was very involved in that world. And so we all got really involved, and I was very fortunate to become an Alateen rep. I would go to high schools in Kansas City, and I would talk to the kids about Alateen and Al-Anon and the things that were available to them if they were in a bad situation. And it was a real gift in my life because I learned so much. And so that happened when I was in high school and very, very young. And so one of the things that I heard in different meeting situations and from people that I would get to talk to was that, and I know it's anonymous, of course, but that many people had a situation that was of major impact, rock bottom, and a lot of people in my life have mentioned that it took that to get them to where they need to be. So it was way more maybe than just being out of alignment. I listen to you and I think if you were just out of alignment and you you took control of that. That is huge. Like that to me is a huge accomplishment. Or was there a moment where you felt like it was the major impact or your I decide moment because of a major impact situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question, and I think it's really important, and it is common where people sort of have that rock bottom moment. And I like to preface it by being like, um, my worst moments. Actually, I did have like this big moment the last time I drank, but I also had worse moments in my life. I think when I got into those car accidents, I go back to like graduation from college and how no one really, like, I had lost all my friends and people didn't want to like stand next to me. I didn't have anyone to take pictures with. Like those were very rock bottom moments. But the actual last time that I drank, it was Labor Day of 2014, and I was a yoga teacher at the time. And I woke up that morning and I taught yoga completely drunk, and I didn't remember teaching yoga. And some people I tell that story to and they're like, that's, horrible. No wonder you stopped. Some people are kind of like, well, some people drink and it's okay and stuff like that. And for me, like I said, I had had maybe worse moments, but it was such a clear slap in the face of like, what am I doing? Yoga was so important to me at that time. I was like, trying to be like spiritual and all of that stuff. And I just had a moment of realizing that if I kept drinking the way I was drinking, my life was going to continue to get worse. And I did see this future. And I think part of it was because I was trying to get into recovery from an eating disorder. I was in therapy. So I was aware of, what sort of addiction looked like. And I was able to connect those dots for myself and actually make a choice when I had that opportunity and say that this is it. I'm not doing this anymore. And that was kind of the big moment for me.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, before we even continue on, that you are such an inspiration. And I am positive that there are people listening right now that are out of alignment, that are thinking, okay, so I know I'm out of alignment in this category or this category or that category. And so that awareness could lead them to a better life. And I love that. And those words so much, Amanda. Thank you for sharing that. And, I think about the glamorization. And I just got done. Okay. I'm going to lighten it up. I just got done rewatching. I have what I call my treadmill shows, which are like brainless. Okay. Brainless TV that I shouldn't watch, but I'm on my treadmill and I can't be outside. And I just rewatched Sex and the City. So I remember when they really glamorized girlfriends going out, having your pink martinis, it was very glamorous. And I mean, at least to a younger mom at the time is what I was when that show came out, and watching that and just like, oh my gosh, to go out with your friends in New York City and drink, blah, blah, blah. It did seem like it was glamorized. And I do feel like that has changed, which I think is a very good thing. But as far as motherhood and drinking, I would love to hear your thoughts on the glamorization of, like, even they talk about people doing bunko and it's just all about drinking instead of playing dice, or play groups where the moms are pouring the mimosas. I mean, there is a problem with that. So talk to us about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally relate to the Sex and the City stuff, because that when I was thinking about getting sober, I really was like, how am I going to ever meet someone? How am I going to get married? How am I going to have friends if I don't drink? And thankfully that wasn't the case. But yeah, I think mommy wine culture is such a huge problem. I think that and now I'm a parent myself. I have an 18-month-old, and that's brought a whole new layer sort of to my sobriety. And, I've said before that my sobriety was very stable. It still is, but when I've had a child and your child is screaming and young and you just are trying to get to bedtime, I get why parents are like, wine is what I need at the end of the night to calm down, to recharge and things like that. And I think it's really unfortunate that it has become glamorized and that it's become this whole subculture of it's this funny way sort of that moms rationalize how hard it is instead of having these deep conversations, I think, about how hard motherhood is, how, endless it can be, how much pressure can be put on moms to be perfect and all of that stuff. Instead, we sort of just joke about it with wine memes and all of that stuff. I think especially during the pandemic, mothers were just drowning with kids at home and all of that stuff. And I think it's really unfortunate how we tend to make a joke of something that's very serious, and women are struggling with their mental health.
Hey there, darlings. We wanted to take a quick moment to talk to you about something super exciting.
That is right, Lisa. And if you're inspired by any of our conversations, but you still feel like you're stuck in place, trapped in guilt and in self-doubt, and in the feeling that you are not enough, but you are still yearning for more time, more self-confidence, and more fulfillment in your life, this is just exactly for you.
We would like to introduce to you our transformative course, Get Unstuck in 10 Days, in which you'll gain practical steps and knowledge to break through those barriers holding you back and start living the life you truly deserve.
Absolutely, Lisa. Whether you're looking to switch it up, switch your mindset, kick those bad habits to the curb, or set meaningful goals aligned with your values, this course will open new doors just for you.
Plus, by enrolling in Get Unstuck in 10 Days, you'll not only get access to valuable lessons and resources, but also join a supportive community of like-minded individuals on a journey to personal growth and empowerment.
So what are you waiting for? Head over to our website at idecide.io and enroll in Get Unstuck in 10 Days today. Let's make those positive changes together.
And don't forget, darlings, stay tuned for more insightful conversations right here on the I Decide Darlings podcast. Thanks for listening.
So, I have two teenage girls, and I love what you said. What'd you call it? The mommy wine
culture. Yeah.
Culture.
Genius. Because it's like Lisa and I were talking about earlier, like you've got the bunko, you've got the wine groups, you've got the, but I think what I love, what you're doing now, like Lisa said, such a gift that you are paying it forward now and helping others. I do like to think though, that there are people out there that maybe they don't think like, I don't have a drinking issue. Like I'm not an alcoholic, oh, I can control my wine or, but I do think that there's a fine line. So, how do you help people take a step back and recognize where is the line? Yeah. And, cause again, I've, 18-month, oh my gosh, I just want to, and now I'm in the, teenage.
Yeah.
But I think I've seen it all now that I think that, what do you tell your clients? Like, where is that line that you can say, maybe I do have, we don't want to say it, a problem.
Yeah.
But how do you grasp that understanding of where you're at?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one thing is, and that's one of the issues with when we kind of say everyone should drink unless they have a problem or they're an alcoholic, and then they should never drink. And that's where really in my book and in my work, I try to expand the definition that anyone can choose to take a break from alcohol or cut back just because they want to, regardless of whether they fit criteria or not. So one of the big things I actually do with my clients is, rather than trying to kind of decipher whether they have a problem or not, I like to ask them, is alcohol making your life better? How is alcohol positively contributing to your life? How is alcohol negatively contributing to your life? Can we get curious about your relationship with alcohol, and what would you like to see different, if anything? Because I find that we can get very stuck on labels and someone should quit or they shouldn't quit, rather than exploring it like anything else in therapy. I explore with my clients, what their relationship was with like sleep or nutrition or, any of these other concepts. And we don't have to talk about whether they have a problem with sleep. We can just talk about what does their sleep look like and how would they like to improve their sleep, for example.
I love those questions because I think it makes you really take a step back and say, what is my relationship with alcohol? I know at one point in my life, and I read a study on it that said it wasn't even the alcohol at like 5 o'clock when I was pouring myself a glass of wine to make dinner and the girls were, at the witching hour. It wasn't even the alcohol. It was just the habit of
Yes.
grabbing grabbing the wine glass, pouring the glass. It was funny because it said in the study, the alcohol had not even hit your brain
Yes.
and you started to feel those endorphins. And so, I got to the point where I thought, and I think we all go through seasons of life that, I was trying to be super healthy and super conscious and thought to myself, do I really need the wine? And after I read that study, I still went and grabbed the wine glass, but instead I poured in sparkling water and put in the fresh lime. And, all of a sudden those same endorphins, because I think it was just that habit. So I love that you're asking these questions because I think there are different ways that you can go, that it wasn't necessarily alcohol. And I think some people it is the alcohol, but it was the habit of what's my day look like. It was almost like the checklist at the end of the day of like, I made it.
Yes.
Know?
Yeah. It's like the ritual of it
Mm-hmm.
too. And that's where we can get creative and use a wine glass and pour something
Mm-hmm.
else. Or I love
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, there are lots of mocktail
Mocktails.
options,
They're
which is
everywhere.
wonderful for people.
Yeah.
And that people can really experiment with that and see
Mm-hmm.
how it goes. So that's often something I talk to clients about as well. If they want to cut back, we'll talk about, can you do a mocktail first and then see? Can we practice that pause? Can we really get curious about whether you're going to get those endorphins from just having that, sparkling water in a nice wine glass, or whether it really is the alcohol? Because somehow it's often with alcohol, it creates this idea of like, it's a moment that we've created for ourselves. And we forget that we can create those moments by doing other things as well.
I used to be the one that said I wasn't fun unless I had alcohol, and it took me many years to understand that that wasn't true. And I was using it as kind of a crutch to say, well, I had to have a glass of wine. No, like it's the choices that we make. Are you seeing, like Lisa said earlier, like, are you seeing we're definitely going in more of a direction of, you don't have to have alcohol. Like you don't, are you seeing that? I feel like we're going in that direction, not only because there's mocktails everywhere, which I love, but I think we're becoming, hopefully, a more health conscious society.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a huge shift just in like, people are a lot more willing to talk about it. People are open and say, I would like to talk to you about my relationship with alcohol, where I think we used to, because there was a lot less examples. If I would ask a client about their relationship with alcohol, often the first thing they would say is, well, I'm not an alcoholic. And that would just sort of shut down the conversation, where people are a lot more willing. And I think it's really great because I think that given enough stress, difficulty, you kind of alluded to this, Erin, I think we all have the capacity to drink too much and to, obviously that looks different for everyone. And some people can end up in a life-threatening scenario. But I think that if we can all recognize that, we can all then be mindful of it. I think especially something shifted maybe with the pandemic too, where I had so many more people reaching out to me saying, after the pandemic, I really realized I was drinking way too much and I didn't like it. And I wanted to make a change. And I think that the amount of mocktails that are available, the amount of alcohol-free wine and alternatives that are available really signal this shift that's happening in our culture, which I think is really exciting.
I think the pandemic put a spotlight on a lot of problems, a lot of relationship, all kinds of things, because we were just stuck together in our houses. And so I think that there's a lot of good that came out of that, actually, and that's still coming out of it. But I love I love your approach, Amanda, on how you ask those questions. And while you were talking about the questions in regards to alcohol and drinking less and putting boundaries on it, I was thinking about we've been in health and wellness, for my whole career. I'm thinking about how all of those questions would really serve a person with, like you had an eating disorder, would serve a person with weight problems or overeating problems and binging, all the different things that we can ask ourselves those questions and really get to the root problem of why they're doing these actions. Even sort of the whole who we surround ourselves with. Are they toxic? Are the people around me toxic? And why am I allowing that to happen? I just think that the approach is so smart and so perfect for what we need in today's world. I also have really noticed just watching the younger generations. I have a 30-year-old, actually, I take that back. I have a 32-year-old daughter and a 28-year-old daughter, and both of those girls have, have friends and groups of people that are glamorizing not drinking. I mean, it's quite a badge of honor, really. And, not just for the month of January, but for their life. And I love that it's taken a big swing where it's neat and popular, and it makes them look, even in our industry, in our industry, and a lot of our speakers are up on stages and they're talking about how they made the decision to stop drinking because it wasn't aligned with where they were trying to go and all these different goals they were trying to achieve. So I think that's really neat. Now, I, on the other hand, am not saying that I don't drink. I like my tequila and soda, but I have been very diligent in cutting out a lot of wine and all the other alcohol that has sugar in it, because I am really focusing my world on a non-sugar diet. And, so that to me was super easy to do. And I'm grateful for that. But I haven't cut it all out 100%. I'm just going to share. But
No, you have to.
No, I know. But it's nice to realize that you do have control of your decisions. And I think that a lot of people that I've known in my life that are alcoholics or that struggle with the idea of not being a drinker anymore, or not drinking every night, or not drinking at all, they struggle with it because I don't know that they feel like they have the power and their own control to make that decision, to change their life. They feel like maybe they're weak, Amanda. I don't know. What do you think? They feel like they don't have maybe the support, and that's why what you're doing is so incredible. But what are your thoughts? Like, if someone is out there listening right now, what would be their first step? Like asking those questions.
Yep. Asking those questions. I also, I think support is so important. I think finding someone, even if it is just like an online, someone you see online who you can connect with, who you feel like you can understand that they're also sober and they're also living this life. I think that's really important. I also think that
did you change your friend groups? Sorry to interrupt you.
I did.
Yeah.
It was a really important thing that I had to do. Like I said, I lost a lot of friends, I think, through the process. But I was living with a roommate who was drinking at the time, and our friendship did not last. And I think that's kind of, I sometimes say sobriety is the superpower because it does also illuminate these other areas of your life that aren't working. And I recognized how many friendships were just built on getting drunk together. I think a lot of people end up in romantic relationships where they kind of marry their drinking buddy. And that's a huge barrier that's scary for someone to stop drinking, because then, what do we have left? And it's really, I think that's one of the biggest barriers I see that stops people from questioning their relationship, is they worry if they pull at that thread, they don't want to see sort of what will come about from that.
Amanda, I'm super curious now, like, having talked about this, like, take us back, like, you're married now, you have an 18-month, like, I'm sure you have amazing friends. So like somebody listening to this that says, how do I get there? Like, share us the light of your story of how did you meet your husband? And just, the other side of the Amanda.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's so great. Like I say, the best and the worst thing about alcohol is it allows you to live a life that doesn't work for you, because alcohol will allow you to kind of make yourself be the square peg that fits into the round hole. So it was hard at the time for sure, but it also, I made real genuine friendships that were based on something much deeper than just drinking. I'm friends with a ton of them today. I met
Yay.
my husband through like we had mutual friends. One of his friends was sober. My husband drinks, but he didn't drink when we were like dating because he knew that was something that I wasn't going to do. And it allowed us to form a much, more authentic relationship that worked really well. When we have hard moments in our relationship, we don't get into fights when we're drunk because that's like a really important value for us. I've been able to write this book and I've created this, private practice and company essentially that was all built off of this that I don't ever think would have been possible if I was still drinking and spending so much time cleaning up messes that I made is what it kind of felt like my younger years looked like, where now I can channel all of that energy into building things, investing in relationships, and creating something that I'm proud of.
To kind of reflect back on something we talked about earlier, do you recommend people find a group setting like AA, or do you let them do that on their own, or how do you feel about those type of help centers?
Yeah. I think AA is incredible. I was in AA for a long time. I think it's not a fit for everyone. So I'm just a believer in if it works for you, great. If you need to, there's so many groups online now, which is wonderful. There's like sober moms groups. There's, young people in sobriety groups. They're all kinds of, a lot of times there's local meetups in cities, or even if you like you guys were talking about in the wellness community, a lot of times you're more likely to find someone who is more interested in sobriety or not drinking. So I don't think it needs to necessarily be a sober community for sure, but finding people who you have something in common with, who you can connect to is really important, regardless of what that looks like.
Oh, that's such good advice.
And sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just kind of reiterate, I love the fact that at our fingertips, we can have everything we need. We're going through in our household a new, what we think is going to be a celiac diagnosis for my husband with gluten. So immediately once we started going gluten-free for his health, I found groups and I found support just overnight. It's just incredible. And that they have that for every different category. I love that.
In writing this book, what were you hoping to gain out of this book, and tell our audience why they need this book and give them a little gist about it?
Yeah. So this is the book that I wished existed when I was looking to stop drinking. It's a very non-shaming, empathetic approach to exploring your relationship with alcohol. It's broken down into 3 sections, essentially, that kind of helps you understand why you drink, how to stop drinking, and what it might look like in the future. And it's written in a engaging way where I share some of my story, but I also share what it's like being a therapist. So it's based interwoven kind of with these dialogues I'm having with, examples of clients. And I ask them questions about their relationship with alcohol. And I wrote it because I think sometimes it's easier for us to see ourselves in someone than just admitting it to ourselves. So I kind of have these conversations with clients in the book through like narrative form. And a lot of people say that that's really helpful because I ask questions and, in the book to the person that they would have never thought to ask themselves. So yeah, it's 3 parts. It's very practical. Each chapter ends with sort of like reflection questions for yourself or tips and how to date sober, how to, make friends sober, how to take care of yourself, all of those things.
And I love that you've created around what you love, like, finding a relationship that you love, understanding all of that. So, and I love the whole not shaming, and we're big onto practical. So we love the practicality part of it, but we also want to not ignore the fact that you have clients all over the country.
Yeah.
We don't have to live just in Philadelphia to hear from you. So tell us a little bit about your practice and how people can find you on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my practice is locally based in Philly, but we have therapists that are licensed in 43 states across the country. Wow. So, if you're looking for help and wanting extra support with a therapist, we'd love to help you. You can learn more about us at therapyforwomencenter.com.
Okay, Amanda, a mom moment really quickly.
Yeah.
Lisa did it earlier. Hats off to you. I mean, hearing your story from the beginning, of being lost and not having any friends, and like my heart breaks of thinking of you at your graduation, and now to hearing you have this beautiful family and you have this practice and you have this Instagram presence and you have this book and you have therapists all over 43 states. I mean, I hope, you can like give yourself a pat on the back. Not that you need it, but again, from two moms to you, I mean, what a story. You are such a blessing, Amanda, to anybody who crosses your path for sure.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you.
Yes, I've loved our conversation today. And, I feel like our audience is going to benefit from this so much in so many different ways. I feel like I didn't only learn about what you do and about the book that's out there, which I feel like we all need to have that book and be able to almost have it as for ourselves or for a gift for somebody else that we know. Because I know talking to you today, I have a lot of thoughts in my head about lots of people and lots of situations that I've been in. And I also have a lot of gratitude. I really do for just for the knowledge and the angle that you're taking, because it's not a kind world always out there. It can be really, really harsh and very condemning. And that's not what people need to heal. They don't need to be condemned. They don't need someone yelling at them, telling them scary things, how terrible they are as a person, because most of them already know their struggles and they're battling those within their head every single day. And so to have this kind and open approach where you really help them get inside themselves is just a true gift. So thank you, Amanda. It's an honor to know you and to have you as a guest. And we're going to make sure in our show notes that we have all of the details where people can find you, find your Instagram, order your book, and all of those things so that it's very easily accessible to all that listened.
Thank you so much for having me.
We loved having you, and we know that you have loved this podcast because we love this podcast and learned so much. So we would be honored if you share it out, like it, subscribe it, all of the things. And like Lisa said, we'll have all of Amanda's information in our show notes as well, because she is a gift and we've had so much fun. So as always, thank you, Amanda, again, for being with us today on the I Decide Darlings podcast. And we will see you soon. And we can't wait to see what we have next here on the I Decide Darlings podcast. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to the I Decide Darlings podcast. If this podcast touched your heart, please share it with your friends and family right after you subscribe yourself.
Don't forget to head over to iDecideBook.com and grab a copy of our favorite book and daily journal. As always, thank you for being here, and we can't wait for you to hear our next episode.